show how wrong Anthony Albanese's priorities are. But look, let's get more now on the Nationals' decision to dump net zero. Joining us is National Senator M.Canavan. Good to see you as always, Matt. Thanks for your time. So that's it. The Nationals party rooms dumped net zero. It was unanimous, but it was a 3-hour meeting. Was there some opposition to it?
Look, I don't go into the party room discussions, but as David Littleproud said today, I think most of our time was spent, well, how are we going to deal with the media and communicate this and discuss all those sort of details. So, look, I'm not going to go further than that, but it was a really useful discussion. As I've been saying for months, the best way to deal with different opinions is to talk them out. And so we've talked them out on a Sunday morning, given up our Sundays to do that. And look, I am just over the moon that common sense is making a comeback here. It is absolutely nonsense to try and target net zero emissions, let alone by 2050. It's clearly not happening anywhere in the world. The only thing the race to net zero is doing is a race to make yourself poorer sooner. And that's what's happened in our country. Since we've started pursuing net zero, our wages have gone back to 2011 levels. 2011, back more than 10 years. Electricity, gas prices, energy prices all through the roof, and it's not working. Net zero is not working for Australia. As I said today, I think net zero is far past its use-by date, and we need a different plan here. Now, we put forward a plan that I think is common sense, that can unleash Australian energy, can remove the restrictions, remove taxes, remove the burdens on the Australian people, as well as making some sensible decisions to reduce our emissions over time, become more efficient and all of those things.
David Littleproud said today the party would still live up to international commitments regarding emission reductions. What does that look like specifically?
Look, what we believe in a fair go, and a fair go for Australia, is that we would only seek to reduce emissions in line with other advanced economies. So the report that myself and Senator Ross Cadell did went into great detail, showing that how Australia is exceeding the rest of the world. If you like, Australia's run rate on emissions reduction is going much, much higher. And in numerical terms, we have been reducing our emissions at a rate of 9 million tonnes per year. Other advanced economies, the so-called OECD, have been reducing their emissions at about 4.5 million tonnes a year. So double the rate. Now, what is worse here, James, is Chris Bowen, over the next 10 years, wants to take that run rate to 21 million tonnes a year. So we've been going at 9 million tonnes a year, the fastest, one of the fastest in the world, and he wants to go way, way, way up to 21 million tonnes a year. And look, with all respect to Chris Bowen, I don't think he can bat at 20 runs and over. I don't think he can do that. He's not Adam Gilchrist. I think it's much more sensible to come back to the pack and only seek to reduce emissions in line with the OECD. And if we're doing that, James, if we're doing that, it's not like we can be kicked out of the club. If we're doing what all the other rich countries are doing, who's going to kick us out?
Matt, if there's a climate crisis, shouldn't we do absolutely everything we can do to reduce emissions as quickly as possible and pay whatever price is necessary? I mean, if there's a climate crisis, Chris Bowen is doing the right thing. Or are you saying there's no climate crisis?
Well, it was exactly what I was about to say. There is not a climate crisis. And we saw that, James, this week from Bill Gates, of all people. Bill Gates, who's had a little bit of a come-to-Jesus moment here on this, and I welcome that. He's written a long piece, quite eloquently pointing out that this is actually not an existential threat. We need to stop scaring our children. Now, I've always thought there is an issue here. There is an issue, and we should try and tackle issues. But guess what? There are a lot of issues that we have to deal with. And the biggest problem we've got right now with the way Canberra is running the show is it is obsessed. Chris Bowen, Anthony Albanese are obsessed over reducing emissions to meet net zero, and they've lost all sense of perspective on the need to reduce living costs, to increase our standard of living, to create jobs and protect our manufacturing sector so that we can defend ourselves, to protect our natural environment. Very important. I'm really keen on doing that. And so it's not a good idea to just clear fell large parts of our koala habitat to put in renewable energy in this mad ideological pursuit of net zero. So what we are calling for is a return to a sense of balance, a sense of perspective. And yes, there is an issue with climate change, but there are some more important issues. And what we've said clearly today as a Nationals Party is our first priority will be to bring down prices for Australians, that we should run our energy system with the primary goal of delivering the lowest energy prices for Australians. And then we can do some other good stuff as well once we've done that.
Matt, where does this now leave the relationship with the Liberal Party? If they stick with net zero, that surely leaves this alliance in a mess.
Look, well, that'll be a decision down the track, so I can't forecast that. I'm glad and proud that the Nationals Party have stood up today. As I said, I think our job in opposition is to be a voice, not an echo, and we have rediscovered our voice today, a voice for those people at Tomago are losing their jobs, a voice for the pensioners and students who can't afford their power bill, a voice for those farmers facing their landscapes being desecrated by these reckless renewables projects. So now we've got to fight for it. Now we've got that voice, we've got to go in there and fight. So we'll fight for common sense within the coalition this week. I don't want to make predictions over how the Liberal Party will go, but I have been receiving very good feedback from my Liberal colleagues on what we've announced today, and hopefully we'll have some good discussions. I'd love to see the coalition stay together, because what I want to do, look, I've been at this for 4 years. I've been a little bit of a lone voice sometimes, saying that net zero is nonsense and we should look at a different path. And what I need is more friends. There's no point me maintaining a sole fight against something in this place. You need numbers. I need friends. So I've got more friends in the Nationals Party now. I want some Liberal friends this week as well.
But what happens if you don't get those Liberal friends? I mean, it's not the first time that there's been a split, particularly in the last 12 months. So can you rule out that won't happen again?
No, look, I'm not going to rule anything out, but I'm not going to say something's going to happen either. I mean, let's see how it goes. I've always said our relationship with the Liberal Party is a business relationship, the relationship between the Nationals and Liberals. It's not a marriage. It's something we do because we think it does deliver benefits for our people. We've made a principled decision today about what we think is best for our country, what we think is best for regional Australia, and we'll just have to see what the Liberal Party, what their position comes to. And I'd love to see, I want to see, the goal is to stay in coalition. As I said, the goal is to build as many supporters in at the parliament as possible. I mean, I know there's plenty of Labor people that shake their heads at this nonsense as well. I'm not predicting that they'll leave because they're just so wedded and to their party. There's never any dissent publicly, but internally I know there's a lot of concern within the Labor Party that how they're going to defend the indefensible. How is it right or correct that we would seek to reduce our emissions at a rate over the next 10 years, which would be triple those of advanced countries? What is the point of that? Why would we punish the Australian people with such a burden when other countries are taking that yoke on themselves?
Matt, you said you're looking for friends, so let's talk about one of your besties, and that's Barnaby Joyce. He wasn't at the party room meeting, even though he's one of the party's biggest backers to dump net zero. He's told the Australian today's decision is not enough to bring him back to the party room. There would need, in his view, to be stronger guarantees against the rollout of large-scale renewable projects. Is there any prospect of that? And could you entice him back with a little further?
Look, we've made a decision today. I'd love to see Barnaby back in the team. I've tried to call Barnaby this afternoon. He was on the plane, so we'll see. Try and convince him of the merits of our case. I do believe that what we've put forward here today is a sensible way of putting a stop to that devastation in the bush. In particular, we have decided that the so-called capacity investment scheme should be expanded to include coal and gas and not just be biased towards solar, wind and battery programs. I'm very confident that if that were the case, we wouldn't see many or any large-scale renewable projects be funded through that program, because clearly using existing coal-fired power stations is the cheapest way to bring on reliable power. I mean, how absurd is it right now that we run our coal-fired power stations at about 50% capacity? To keep the cricket analogy going here tonight, it's a bit like leaving Adam Gilchrist in the sheds for half the innings. These power stations are the cheapest way to generate power. No one disputes that. This is existing coal-fired power stations. No one disputes they are the cheapest way to deliver power today, yet we leave them idle for about 50% of the time. So if we were to reform the capacity mechanism, as was recommended by the Energy Security Board 3 years ago, if we were to do that, that would bring on that latent capacity. We'd have someone who could score runs for the country out there and put in more supply of power to the grid. And it's a very simple equation. The more supply of cheap energy we get into the system, the lower our prices will be.
M.Canavan, I've never heard so many cricket analogies in a single political interview. That was quite brilliant. We appreciate...
You know why that's the case? I actually missed the Pollies v Press game today to kill net zero. I was meant to play, and I gave it up. And guess what? The Pollies lost. So I'm claiming that's because I wasn't there.
There must have been. Well, you had bigger priorities to deal with, Matt Canavan, today.
I did.
So I'm
not
sure they'll
regretting it.
excuse your absence this time. Matt Canavan.